I love Undertale. Don't you? If you've been a fan for any amount of time, you've definitely seen a bunch of different Sansas running around the community, even some not Sansas. There's so many of these characters, it can get pretty overwhelming for someone who hasn't been in the fandom for a long time. Hell, it's pretty overwhelming for those who have. But don't worry, in this series, we're gonna go over the many alternate universes, AUs, and the alternate timelines, ATs, each episode containing more obscure universes than the last. So, without any further ado, grab your popcorn, grab your snacks, drink your water, drink your lemonade, hype the video, subscribe. Starting off with a banger, we have Underswap. Probably the most well-known AU, I'd assume. The concept is very simple. In Undertale, each character had another character that they were very closely associated with. So in this AU, all the pairs are swapped. So you know, Sans and Papyrus, Kara and Frisk, Toriel and Asgore, Flowey and Temmie. Wait, what? Okay, story time. Toriel and Asgore are king and queen, yada yada, but whether it be before or after being sealed underground, they adopt one child, that being Monster Kid, for whatever reason. Then Frisk drops down as the first fallen child, and they adopt them too. Just like in the original, the two children do their silly little plan, Monster Kid comes back and dies, but instead of dying on a bunch of flowers, he either makes it to his bedroom and died, which, you know, pretty unlikely, or he had a Temmie plush on him that he died with, which was later experimented on by the scientist Undyne and brought back to life in. I really don't know what led her to experiment on the plush, but now we've got Temmie. So this means that instead of Temmie Village, we have Flowey Village. And for some reason, Temmie must have been a semi-popular teddy bear in the underground for Monster Kid to have it on him at the time of his death, but either way, after this, Asgore left the castle and Toriel became evil. She had Asriel, who for some reason hangs around in Snowdin more often than not. I guess being an evil girl boss doesn't leave a lot of time for taking care of her children. But apart from this, the story of Underswap is more or less the same. All the characters have their roles and personalities swapped, so all that really changes is how they look. Despite this, off the backs of the two Skelebros, this AU was able to become one of the most popular ones in the fandom and possibly inspire the many AUs we know today. Literally every character you can think of now takes the role of someone else. So like, who's manning Groovies now? It's Muffet, no one tell Merg. So that means instead of buying spider-themed shit from spiders in ruins, Grillby pulls up to the ruins to support the many flame monsters that supposedly exist in Underswap. Sorry, did I say ruins? All of the areas are swapped too. Instead of going ruins, Snowdin, Waterfall, Hotlands, and New Home, we have Ruined Home, Starlight Isles, Crystal Springs, or maybe Fire Rise, then Cold Sea. Wait, why can't I find anything for Toriel's land? For most of these AUs, creating cool and interesting character designs was the main focus, so literally everything else was left to the wayside. Some even interpreting the AU as having the same locations as normal Undertale. At least that would make things easier to remember. But anyway, probably the most important changes are Sans now being the eccentric royal guard wannabe who says "Mwahehe," and Papyrus, the lazy brother who now drinks mustard. The two have their father, Gaster, who was swapped with the river person, W employed father, while the river person is now the former royal scientist. We know as little about him in the real game as we do about Gaster, so, you know, I suppose it works out well. This AU was created by Popcorn Prince. They created this artwork, which is literally the first thing that comes up when you search up Underswap, which is fitting because it is also the first thing ever created for this AU, and for most AUs in general, to be honest. Like, damn, put this shit in the Louvre. But yes, from this single picture sprouted the rest of the AU, which really makes sense seeing as nobody can decide what Waterfall is in this AU. Eventually, they abandoned the AU after the characters were essentially hijacked by the community. I wasn't an Undertale fan at the time, so I don't know the full story, but they turned Swap Sans into a caricature of what Popcorn Prince wanted him to be, affectionately named Blueberry by the community. This Fan and Sans.
I really don't know this.
Kind of smell
What?
like a baka.
Was pretty much a fucking child. And on top of that, the kind of I'm not reading that part. So now it belongs to the community. I'm not even sure if that's the right way to say it, since we haven't even decided on locations for this AU yet, but nobody really touches the AU. Most people just take Sans and use them in their multiverse shenanigans. Most people, except for the insane talent over at Team Switched. You may have noticed a lot of this footage had come from a single game. Well, that's because probably the biggest piece of modern day Underswap is the fan game TS Underswap. This game fleshes out the world into a complete universe, creating an expansive game with features not even present in the original original Undertale. One of the big differences between this version and the Underswap most people are familiar with is that rather than swapping roles and personalities, the characters only swap roles. This allows the AU to be more than just an Undertale reskin and have real interesting differences that you're just gonna have to play the game to find out about. This section is long enough as it is, but if you want, I do have a playthrough on my channel, check it out in the description. But the game isn't complete yet, so no answers on that hotland question. But it does fix some of the continuity problems, like Monster Kid's dust getting onto Temmie's plush. As it seems, Flowey and Temmie are two separate characters. I'm unsure which of these two are actually Monster Kid, seeing as Flowey is nice in this version, and Temmie has taken the rest of the Temmie village with him. But regardless, I'm super excited to see where this AU goes, and can't wait to see the finished version of TS Underswap. Moving on to something I'm sure will have less yap. We have the edgy version of Undertale, Underfell. Everyone is red, everyone is evil. Last AU they swapped roles of characters. This time, they swap alignment. The only character who is actually evil in Undertale, Flowey, is now good in Underfell and joins you on your quest in the underground. Oh, and Mad Dummy is not mad, I guess. The creator of this AU is Vic the Underfeller, who still has ownership of the AU, but hasn't done much outside of designs and personalities for the characters, instead giving it to the community to make up their own interpretations for the story for this AU. In one of the interpretations, it is stated that the timeline followed the original Undertale story until a long life in the underground drove the monsters to a kill or be killed mentality. Originally, I assumed the endings would be swapped in a way, like Sans would fight you in Pacifist, Asriel would fight you in Genocide, but apparently those routes don't exist. There's a trust route, which is essentially pacifist, but the monsters begin to have peace with each other too, foregoing their kill or be killed mentality. The closure route, which is the same, but the monsters find closure with each other, whatever that means. And the betrayal route, where Flowey uses the human to kill all the monsters. I suppose this is the version of the genocide route. Frisk is just immune to being evil, I guess. But you know who isn't immune to being evil? Asgore. So, with the big prologue changes, Asgore breaks off the beaten path by being the one to poison Kara himself. This leads Asriel to do their plan as usual, and Toriel to leave his ass. Bro really said, I'm evil, but I'm not that evil. He also gave Papyrus that scar because he's low-key petty, and gave Sans his uncontrollable powers. I don't know how that works, but moving on. Undyne is a very interesting character to me as she's a fellow wrestling fan, let's go. Also dating Alphys since the start of the story, but WrestleMania belt for Papyrus from Alphys, let's go. Like Underswap, the AU has a pretty famous game, if you can call it that. The main one I'm familiar with being GG Underfell, which you may also know from the game Delta Traveler. This Sans is a fucking tweaker, bro, I swear to God. Basically, it's Underfell, but to the max. The monsters being actual monsters, and the routes actually being swapped like how I assumed it was in the beginning. Also, GG Sans canonically killed Susie, at least in Delta Traveler she did. I thought that was cool, but moving on. Before we move on to the next one, I'd just like to ask you to subscribe to the channel. This is the first episode of the series, so if we can get as many people on board for future episodes as possible, then I'll be able to consistently pump out these videos. That's all. I hope you enjoyed the next topic, being Storyshift. Probably most well known from Bad Time Trio. It's where the roles of the characters are, wait for it, shifted. Kara takes Sans' role, Sans takes Asgore's role, who takes Alphys' role, and Alphys takes Nabzabluk's role? Nabzabluk takes Asriel's role. What? Before we get into things, there's a few notes I should mention. Number one, this AU swaps the roles, but not the personalities, unlike Underswap, and was one of the first AUs to do so, to be honest, leading the characters to be very different from their Undertale counterparts. Number two, this AU has a reboot and original version. Finding any information on either was pretty tricky, seeing as the wikis have this to say, but I was able to find some information on the original version, so without further ado, story time. So, as stated, Sans is king now. That means Papyrus is queen, I mean prince. In the reboot version, apparently there's another king, but I couldn't find any info about he got replaced with Sans, so let's just forget about him, I guess. Metaton and Nabzabluk were the Kara and Asriel of this universe, adopted by Sans and Papyrus, but died somehow. I'm telling you, man, finding information on this AU was tough. So Papyrus went to lay their dust in the ruins, now called Old Home, or Sans pushes himself to kill all humans who arrive in the underground. Like Toriel in the original, Papyrus abandoned Sans after finding out that he murdered the fallen humans, but still wants to forgive him. Meanwhile, Nabzabluk's dust allows him to possess one of the flowers, becoming this AU's version of Flowey, Boogie, I don't know. Apparently, Nabzabluk died after Metaton from sadness of his cousin's death, so that might have something to do with why he was able to possess a flower, while Nabzabluk is just stuck in the ground, waiting to possess a human like Kari in the original, but I don't know. Also, in this AU, Metaton is called Metacrit. It's supposed to be a pun of Metacritic, also because Metaton is the robot version, even though in the original, they do have the Metaton, but I don't know. While alive, they were a huge activist, being able to convince the entire underground that humans and monsters could coexist before their unknown cause of death. The underground has their areas changed too, despite everyone besides the main cast staying the same characters. We have Old Home instead of Ruins, Frosted Fields instead of Snowden, okay, Wetlands instead of Waterfall, and Furnace instead of Hotlands. It's just the same thing with different names, right? I mean, I feel like they've been shifted, changed in some way, but again, I wouldn't know. In the Frosted Fields lie the backbone of this AU's relevance, Kara and Asriel. In this AU, Kara was the last human to fall before the player and was adopted by Toriel, who thought she witnessed Sans trying to kill them and took her to her home in Waterfall to keep her safe, but apparently it was just a misunderstanding, a misinput if you will. But I guess Toriel didn't trust the person she apparently had a good relationship before this with. Speaking of relationship, her and Asgore actually stay married during the events of the game, but just barely. Kara lives with them for most of their life, despite being in Frosted Fields and Toriel living in Wetlands. I don't know. Additionally, I've been told their gender is male, but assumed they were female all my life, and have seen them exclusively referred to as they, them by the wiki, so I'm not really sure what to think. I'm just gonna go by the original and call them genderless child. Another misconception with Kara is their moveset. The most popular version of them, the Bad Time Trio, sees them using knives, an allusion to the original Kara, or the Fanon version of her, but officially, she only uses flower power. For what reason? Hell if I know. There's no Flowey that she's closely related to, so I guess she was just born with the flower magic. They do have determination, but not enough to beat the human, but are apparently able to remember the resets. But coming back to the flower magic, as a human on the overworld, having this kind of magic made her an outcast from the rest of society, leading to them coming down in the underground in what I'm assuming was an attempt on their life. So once down in the underground, they have severe trust issues, thinking that the love that Toriel and their brother Asriel provides them is fake and that they're secretly judging her just like the humans above. So one day, they took a vine-cutting knife and ran off somewhere out of the way to make another attempt. Luckily, however, she made her way to the ruins door and Papyrus was able to talk her out of it, thus starting a beautiful relationship between the two. Meanwhile, Asriel, while wanting to join the Royal Guard, additionally doesn't want to capture humans, instead flirting with them from time to time. What the okay. Luckily for him, Toriel also wouldn't hurt a human, so his chances aren't shut down there. Speaking of Toriel, she takes Undyne's role as the leader of the Royal Guard, while Asgore takes Alphys's role as the Royal Scientist, turning Undyne into a cyborg after she was badly injured, somehow, but is now the star of the Underground. I'm assuming Asgore's work and guilt from the amalgamates is what's causing his relationship with Toriel to stray. But in story, Asriel hopes that Frisk will be able to mend their relationship. I don't know why he thinks this, but child logic, I guess. Also, Alphys. She takes Nabzabluk's role, make of that what you will. From the reboot and pre-boot shenanigans, bad time trio representation, and lack of an easy way to find information, this AU is definitely one of the most misinterpreted. Kara's gender and moveset being the most glaring, and I'm sure even I've gotten some information wrong in this video too. But with the fanon version of Storyshift Kara being the most popular and more enjoyed version by the community, who really cares? Hopefully the reboot version will be able to make itself clear and distinguish itself from the fanon interpretations, but until then, when I think of this AU, I will probably still be thinking of the fanon Kara. And that's okay. Regardless, I hope this video does a good enough job on cluing those unfamiliar with this AU, including myself, in on its official story. Now, for a bit of a niche one before getting into the more popular AUs, we have Altertale. Most known for the Megalovania of their new Sans character, this AU has only 6 characters swapped. What? Created by Frysans, This AU swaps the Sans family and the Dreamer family. So, Sans and Toriel, Papyrus with Asgore, and Azriel with Garstar. To be fair, an Azriel Garstar sounds hella sick, but was it worth creating a whole AU for just 6 new characters? In this AU, Toriel and Asgore were siblings created by Azriel, the former royal scientist who was forgotten about after falling into the core. Since then, the pair had been living in Snowdin and met Sans, who Toriel has a relationship with. Okay, I think I know why this AU was created now. Not judging, but personally, I'll be remembering this AU for the sick-ass Megalovania remix Dynamo, which is probably playing right now. Anyway, after the whole story of Undertale, the human resets, but something very, very interesting happens that I'm only half sure is canon, but we're gonna talk about it anyway. Fucking Killer Sans shows up. Video on the evil Sanses in the near future, but Killer Sans? Why? All you need to know for this video is they are an evil Sans. Well, apparently there was a multiversal battle going on between Team Void, whom I'm assuming is Nightmare and friends, and Team Hope, probably led by Corfrisk. Nightmare is an evil Sans and Corfrisk is a multiversal traveling Frisk code? Regardless, after a hard-fought battle, Killer flees after Team Hopes arrives to the timeline, picking up the swapped characters and taking them to the Omega timeline. The Omega timeline essentially is a universe where characters from destroyed timelines reside and live out the rest of their days. Okay, so there's definitely a lot of lore I'm missing regarding the multiversal teams and such, but that is outside the scope of this video, and I'm not even sure if it's canon to Altertale. I did message the creator and ask them. Hold on, let's see if they responded. A pretty interesting story and great music for an AU that I am convinced was just made to ship Toriel and Sans, but moving on. Also, fun fact for fellow Helptale fans, this Sans is the one that becomes our caretaker in that AU, but okay, actually moving on now. Outertale! Outertale has the same story as Undertale, but in outer space. Gee, thanks, Wiki. Like Underfell, this is more of an aesthetic AU, so all the characters' designs are spacey and sci-fi and all that. I can't find confirmation for this anywhere, but I'm assuming this takes place in the distant future, since instead of being sent underground, the monsters are shot off into space. Also, monsters turn into stardust when killed. Future shenanigans, I'm sure. Along with this, Flowey is a star? I'm gonna be so deadass. I don't know how the whole Azriel Kara story works in Outertale, or even how the humans ended up here. Like, who's letting these children go on ships to Outertale, bruh? Regardless, for a more thorough look into this AU, we're gonna need a complete version, which is where the game PS Outerswap comes in. One of the best recent Undertale fan games out there. In this version, instead of sending the monsters to outer space, it turns out they were aliens to the humans, and in some intergalactic warfare, they destroyed the monsters' planet. After this, they were sent to the outpost and had a barrier erected around them. However, apparently space travel is very common for children as Frisk comes to this place. I don't remember if we get an explanation to the whole Flowey deal, but we do, however, know that this is set 500 years in the future. However, if you're going to want to know more about this game, stay with me now. You're gonna have to play it yourself. There's also like a billion other endings in this game. Like, if you just beat the shit out of everyone, but spare them, they will leave you on the outpost in the good ending. Like, you fight Azriel, you do all the true pacifist stuff, but by beating and then sparing the people, but they just leave you. They're gone. I don't know, I just thought it was really funny. I won't go more into this version, as the point of this video is to be a good source of information on all AUs, especially ones where information is lost to time, scarce, or the AU is just really niche. But this AU, there's a whole ass game you can play for yourself, so go do that. Overall, it's a really good version of Outertale for modern day fans, and is what put this AU up there in my eyes as one of the greats. Okay, we had our famous one. Now for one that's a little more along the lines of Outertale in terms of relevancy, we have Storyspin. As the name suggests, this one is an offshoot of Storyshift. It takes the shifts that the AU does and reverses it, not in the sense that Azriel is now Sans and Kara is now Papyrus. Oh, we'll get to that one. Instead of going Sans is Asgore, who is Alphys, who is Nabzabluk, who is Azriel, and so on, it goes Nabzabluk is the royal scientist, Alphys is now queen, Asgore is Sans, and Sans is Kara. Oh shit, yo, this AU didn't catch on? I thought the fandom would love that shit. There was a lot of ownership turmoil going on throughout the years of its release. which we're not going to cover, but I will say this led to the story being more or less non-existent. So your guess is as good as mine as to how Alphys became queen. But what we do get from this AU are some banging ass music. Megalolazing Like Dynamo is a song I've been listening to since the early days of being in the fandom, and it still holds up even today. Now, another relatively niche AU that we'll be talking about today is Undertale Inverted Fates. I saw this one from Merg playing through one of the many boss fights that this game had made, but was unable to find any more information on it. So today we're going to right that wrong. This one happened because during a true pacifist timeline, Asriel tries to reset but fails miserably. I don't know why that goat boy thought he could do that, but because of this failed reset, the main 6 characters, Asgore, Toriel, Alphys, Undyne, Sans, and Papyrus, have their roles swapped like an Underswap, but like Storyshift, keep their personalities, leading to some very serious story changes. Originally, it was a comic made by Dogged in 2016. Hey, isn't that a YouTuber? This AU has Frisk not being controlled by the player and can actually talk, and along with Kara, who now has full-on conversations with Frisk, and Papyrus, who joins the human, they go on and try to break the barrier, all at Flowey's command, who is once again trying to get the 6 souls. Outside of that, the story is pretty self-explanatory. There's only 6 characters swapped, so there's a lot less plot holes here. All the characters fill their roles, but with their old personalities, like in TS Underswap. Sans being a lazy royal guardsman, Undyne being a passionate scientist, and if you want to know more, as I said about the other Undertale games, play the fucking games. Okay, now we're really testing my knowledge on these AUs. And by that, I mean this one I had to stumble upon accidentally rather than reaching into the pits of my mind to remember it. The only thing this AU has is the Sans Undertale fight fan game. Kara is Torio in this one. I don't care anymore, bro. Now, we've gone over many role swap AUs, aesthetic change AUs, and more, but you know, that's not enough for this fandom. So how do we get more AUs? Let's mix and match what we have. That's right. It's time to stack the AUs that we have now. So how about we take Underswap and Underfell to give us Swapfell and Fellswap. Some of the most popular AUs in the fandom with more content than either of its predecessors combined. I know that sounds crazy, but it's genuinely true. But before we get there, I want to talk about what happens when we put the swap and fell filters onto the more lesser known AUs. For example, there's not too many important fell AUs. Each of the other AUs have a fell version, but they don't have the notoriety or popularity of Swapfell. There's Storyfell, the fell version of Storyshift, who is literally only relevant for Kara, mostly because, bro, isn't she like a child? What the fuck's wrong with these people? There's also Altertale, whose fell version, Outertale, is strangely prominent. I'm beginning to doubt the real reason why these people want to fellify these AUs. However, the swap version of these AUs, well, if I'm going to be honest, Storyswap Asriel has been and always will be my goat. Like this was my profile picture for months. But the real underdog is Spin Swap. Hey, why does that sound so familiar? Oh, right, it's Evil Papyrus. Words cannot describe how fucking hype this song is. Despite being made for a swap version of possibly the most least known shift AU out there, like this is the actual definition of diamond in the rough. And imagine all the other songs like this out there that were definitely made for these yee ass AUs, but actually slap ass. Anyway, that's all I had to say about the less known AUs. Now it's time to sell my soul to Swapfell and Fellswap. Now, you may be thinking, Swapfell and Fellswap? Aren't those the same thing? It's not. It's not. Trust me, it's not. Swapfell is an underswap that has been put through the Underfell filter. Meanwhile, Fellswap is the reverse. An Underfell where the characters have their roles swapped. First, we'll start with Swapfell, since Underfell was the aesthetic changing AU and everything was given a tinge of red. In Swapfell, since Underswap is mostly associated with blue, well, you know what happens when you combine blue and red. Just like in Underfell, everyone is just so fucking evil and wants to kill you, except for Papyrus, the Sans of this AU, and Temmie. Just like in Underswap, every single character is swapped with their pair counterparts. Something notable about this AU is that it has slight themes of capitalism, along with kill or be killed shenanigans from Underfell. But for some reason, I don't know why, but the monsters in Hotland and Core are said to be richer and more luxurious than those in Snowden, and of course the ruins. I don't know why it was added, but it sticks. Keep it in mind. Fellswap, on the other hand, it's not purple, and since adding Underswap only changes the roles, it does nothing to the overall aesthetic of Underfell, leaving it more or less red. It does give Papyrus a fucking color, like what the fuck's going on here? But the weird thing is, there's a version called Fellswap Gold, Wait, what? I'll get to that, but I know the normal version exists. I'm looking at it, so why can't I find a wiki for it? Every time I search it up, gold comes up. I don't know, but you're gonna have to take my word for it that there's a base Swapfell and a base Fell Swap. Now, what do I mean base? Well, it's time to get into the colors. First off, the one I'm most familiar with, Fell Swap Gold. Golden. We're going up, up, up type shit. Now, this one I was introduced to back in the day, but all I remember about it is that Papyrus has autism. Remember how I said Swapfell was diving into themes of capitalism? Fellswap is the combination between Underfell and Underswap. It is set in the Cold War era of the 20th century, and its setting is inspired by the totalitarian countries from that time, and most notably, the Soviet Union. We're living in communist Undertale. Fellswap Gold is one where LGBT monsters are afraid to hold hands, oppressing their true feelings, even getting into jail for just expressing their ideas. Oh wow, it sounds very personal. I'm sure the author must have suffered something very similar, and I'm glad they were able to get it out through their work. But did you fucking say Soviet Union? In this world, the monsters sealed themselves off from the humans. They locked themselves underground to get away from the fucking Soviet Union humans, bro. Oh my goodness. And these are Underfell monsters. Apart from that, this AU has some other changes like Gasta, Shiren, and Aaron not being swapped. And, oh, what's that? Gasta's a woman now? Here's some of the amazing art from this AU. Oh yeah, Temia swaps with Flowey and Flowey joins you in Underfell. Okay, that's cool. Oh yeah, Asgore went insane. Okay, that makes sense. I'm pretty sure Toriel went insane too in Underfell. Oh hey, they look at the designs for Sans and Papyrus. Wow, it's so cool. Is that a fucking machine gun on the Gasta Blaster? Oh yeah, Papyrus is autism now. There you go. Don't get me wrong, the other designs and characters look so fucking cool, and the aesthetic and story sounds really interesting, but I'm like 90% sure that the fandom only cared about the Sans and Papyrus characters, took them, and ran with them. But let's not go there yet. This is only one of the colors. We've still got Swapfell Red. Wait, what? Swapfell's whole thing is that it's purple, but now it's red. And Fellswap had a gold version as well. Does that mean that Swapfell has a gold version? Does the Fellswap have a red version, or is it always... Where do these colored versions even come from? Oh, hold on. I found the reasoning for this one at least. Swapfell Red was made because Fellswap Gold have replaced the original Fellswap. I knew it. I fucking knew it. The One Piece is real. I fucking knew it. They created Fellswap to separate the old Papyrus and Sans designs from Fellswap Gold and to keep them alive. I guess they really wanted to keep colored Papyrus for some reason. Okay, so this is really what you should be thinking when you hear Fellswap, but Fellswap Gold just got more popular, I suppose. So next color, next we got Fellswap Emerald. I can't find any lore, but essentially it's the Mafia version. There's a whole ass Mafia version of Swapfell. Forget actual Undertale. They made a whole AU for Mafia Swapfell. I thought this would be more of a story AU, but all I could find was a fan game. He's a fucking battle AU. He even has the phase 2 and Sans Ghost to boot. Like, what the fuck? Oh, but hey, there's a Storyfell Emerald, and yeah, that checks out actually. Okay, I think we've got through all the colors. But wait, there's more.
Here's my summary and differences because I keep mixing
wait, I needed this.
and Swapfell.
Swapfell,
This
okay.
is Fellswap
Fellswap Gold.
Wine and coffee. Then we have
Why
Fellswap
the wine and
X
coffee?
on human art
X.
with gin and pepper.
Those
Adorable
are
design.
these names.
Then we have
They look cool though.
Swapfell.
Swapfell.
The purple
The
one's
real one.
Cash
Real
and
Swapfell.
Blackberry.
Blackberry.
Then we have Swapfell Red.
Malord?
And Mud, who get mixed up with wine a lot.
Who the fuck
then
is
we have
wine?
Viper from
Viper!
Hidden
I know that
Scars
guy.
Of I'm Just a Lazy Cat's design
what?
with his brother Pups.
He's just a dog. There's
And
two of
we
them.
also
He's just a
have
dog,
in
bro.
the same
Why is
universe,
there
we have
more?
the Swapfell brothers
From the
which
same universe?
is Pytho, which is a really cool nickname.
Yeah,
and
okay, they
named
look cool,
for this
but why are there
particular
two fucking
distinction, and
Sans
Pupper.
skeletons?
And if you haven't seen that comic,
Oh,
it
it's
is
a whole
still
comic.
available on their Tumblr. It's a
Oh
pretty
my
dark
God.
comic, graphic warning for that.
What?
But
Why
there's
is there
also
more?
Other versions sprinkled out there in the world.
Are these
We got
Sans or
Max,
Papyrus?
we got
Max?
We have Russ
Mud?
and Papyrus, which is
Papyrus.
also another Russ.
That
so
was just
that's
Papyrus.
This specific part of the Swapfell fandom I was vaguely introduced to, like Viper. I fucking love that guy. Have you seen my name, bro? How could I not? But the rest, who fucking knows, man? I've seen them in Undertale comic dubs back in the day, but never knew who they were. And honestly, that's just shit for another video. Like, I can't. I wanted to talk about trios again and evil Sans, but I just don't have time for this. I'm done. Episode 1. Off to a good start, I'm sure. Once again, subscribe to stay tuned for episode 2. Next video will be a sequel to the trio video. Then after that, it's time for the evil Sanses, which... oh god.